here with Rich Moran, who is a 10-time author, also a radio host on KCBS in San Francisco, host of In the Workplace. And although we have 10 books to choose from, we are actually here to talk about one today. His new book, Never Say Whatever: How Small Decisions Make a Big Difference, is coming out this month, and he is here to tell us all about it. Rich, thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to be here, Cynthia. Great to see you.
Excellent to see you.
Well, we have questions.
I'm sure you do. But I'm here to cure you. I'm here to cure you from the plague of whatever.
Well, I've got to ask, because it just begs the question, the title, what happened? Was there just one incident where you said, I've got to write this book now because somebody said whatever to you? What was the context for that? What prompted you to write it? Because I'm gonna give this to my two sons, because they need this book. Because whatever drives me absolutely crazy.
It is that word that makes everybody crazy, and including me. So it's funny because I ask people in surveys, do you know someone who says whatever? And 100% of people say, yes, I do. And I hate that word. And then I ask people, do you say whatever? And lots of times they say, no, I don't, but they sort of do. But the trigger was, I was, as a consultant, I was dealing with a top-notch CEO, and he had to make a big decision, and we laid out the options, and his response to the options was whatever. And which was really him saying, you make the decision for me, Mr. Consultant, and I'll blame you later, which he did. And I thought, this is just an evil word. We need to examine this. And as I got into it, I realized it's everywhere. Everybody's saying it, and it means bad things. It means when you say the word whatever, two things happen. Either you're conveying the notion that you're a slacker, that you're a stoner, or you don't care. But worse, you're not making a decision. And, all decisions matter. Those little ones matter. So that's what started it all, Rhett. And I've learned that I've hit a raw nerve as I've been interviewed by others and by you. You say, I want to cure my family of what the one comment I love, and I get it often, is I'm buying this from my boss, and I'm leaving it in their mailbox at night or something.
Secretly, right?
Yeah.
No, you definitely struck a nerve. Never Say Whatever is a book that I would just pick up in the store just to gift it out for that very reason of it hits you in your gut where things are going to go wrong. But it's totally on you, apparently. To your point with the CEO, it's all in your house now.
Yeah, well, it has hit a nerve, and I'm happy about that, because there's hundreds of books written about decision making, and my book is sort of in the white space of all of that, where it's about the little decisions. It's I can do pivot tables and spreadsheets and flux capacitors and all kinds of things about how to make decisions, but I'm talking about the little ones. And I like to tell the story. It's a good metaphor. According to researchers at Cornell, we make 35,000 decisions per day.
Wow.
Yeah. And they said there's over 300 decisions. This is the one I love, that you make at lunch. When you go out to a colleague at lunch, you make 300 decisions. And it's where to go, where to sit, lettuce, tomatoes, mayonnaise, whole wheat, rye, turkey, Swiss. And every time you say the word whatever to any of those little decisions, you're likely to get the sandwich that you don't want. So it's just a good metaphor for those little decisions can pile up and hurt your career, hurt your relationships, hurt your life. So I'm trying to bring that to everybody's attention, that little decisions matter.
Yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's triggering me over here. By the end of a work day, I go out to dinner with my husband, and I'm like, I'll have whatever you have. And he gets so mad. But it's true. How do you avoid it? Is it, is it an awareness thing?
Part of it. I did a lot of interviews for the book and for some leaders, and leaders typically don't say whatever. But what came out of it was the notion that decisions follow intentions. And if your intent is clear, then your decision-making process is much easier. So at a most basic level, if you intend to lose weight, you make decisions like you're on a diet. If you intend to stay married, you make decisions like you are married. And it goes, so I'm making it as simple as I can, but clarifying your intentions can be difficult on a daily basis. So, if your intention today is to get a raise, then you work a little harder. Or if your intention today is to get into shape, then you make decisions about exercising. So if you know your intent, decision making is easier. And I make it very simple, but intentions are hard. It's hard to clarify those.
Mm-hmm. And you make decisions every day along those lines.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
one of the guys I interviewed for the book, it's an unusual combination. He's a Kansas lawyer, but he's also an Episcopal priest. He's a very successful attorney. He's also a priest. And he said, when people think about visions and missions, they think about IBM or big conglomerates, and it's not necessarily that. So he has a mission that he wants to help people. That's basically his intention. So he makes decisions every day about that, and it made sense to me. So I put it in the book. It was a fun interview about a lawyer priest who has clear intentions.
So how do we get into this trap of, and I see where whatever leads. I understand that sort of that thought process of where that leads to. How do we get out of that cycle? Because I think that's easier said than done. I mean, how do we get out of that cycle of that, where when we say whatever and we actually stop caring, we actually stop, and we give up and we sort of relinquish control to whatever, right? Yeah. How do we get out of that cycle? Because that seems like a cycle to me.
It sort of is. People talk. Some people say, well, I use the word all the time because I'm so tired of making decisions. I have decision fatigue. And part of that is because my hypothesis is that you get decision fatigue because you didn't make the decision when you could have. So I use the example, you wake up in the morning, you have 200 emails or more, I don't know, pick a number. And, some of them are easy to decide about. The easy ones are delete, 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 delete. And then there's 10 or 20 that you don't make a decision about. You put those over on the side because you'll wait to make those decisions. And then Friday comes around and you've got 100 of those in your box. And had you made the decision in the first place, it wouldn't have piled up like that. But I think COVID has made us a little lazy about making decisions. Like, should I get dressed up for the Zoom meeting? Probably not. Should I take down that, marijuana poster in the background on a Zoom meeting? Maybe, whatever. And we got a little lazy about decision making. So we fell into this trap that if I defer decisions, maybe it will go away or solve itself. And they don't. One of the things that the research, my little research found also was that Bain did this study about, they call it the 2-minute rule, that the decision that you make in the first 2 minutes of being faced with that decision is probably the same one that you would make a week later if you suffered over it for a week. And the glory of making it in the first 2 minutes is if it's the wrong one, you can go back and fix it. But if you suffer over it, maybe you can't. So make the decision, so part of the message of the book is make the decision now, and those small ones will pile up and then you'll be miserable. And so make them now and get out of that trap.
Yeah, it's almost like the other thing that's interesting about COVID is we we're faced with many decisions we didn't have before.
Mhm.
So it's almost like we've traded them off. Like, yes, I can decide if I want to go into the office or work from home, but I don't know if I want to get dressed. Like,
Yeah, it
is
matters.
that
I mean, I talk about, so that's a whatever. That's a big whatever. And then play it out. I talk about how if your boss doesn't know your name because you never show up, you're going to get fired. So, there's consequences to whatever. And I really try to lay those out. And I also make it very simple in the book about, well, how do I get out of it? How do I make decisions? I'm bad. I hear it all the time. I'm really bad at making decisions. And so I have this whole list of tools and hacks you could, even somebody told, again, it's from experience and interviews. Somebody said, well, I just ask if I have a decision to make, I just ask Siri. She's really smart. Or someone else uses the magic 8-ball, turn it over, answer Hazy, keeps on turning it over until they get the answer they want. But, you can use simple pros and cons. You can use if-thens. If I do this, then this happens. You can use your gut. But a lot of people say, well, I use my gut, which is fine if your gut is experienced. Steve Jobs always talked about he used his gut. Well, he had 30 years of experience making decisions about products. That's how his gut was informed.
he knew how to get fired?
Yeah. So if you're 20 years old and you're using your gut, I hope you have some experience in that category, but it doesn't have to be hard. It can be, decision making can be simple. But another sample I use is I talk about it quite a bit in the book about a personal board of directors, meaning, what would Paul Newman do in this situation? I like him. He's smart and always seems to do the right thing. So sometimes you just think, what would my dad do or mom do, or what would somebody that I respect do in this situation? And that can be helpful too. But make those decisions even if they're small. Simple.
So, I never really thought of whatever in this context before this conversation and before I looked at the book. And I think what's interesting to me is that you're really tying it to decision making. But prior to this conversation, I've always thought of it as sort of a dismissive
It is.
term, right? Kind of an FU term, or and so talk about how you make that connection, because I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
How you tie those things together.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people say it's very similar to the F word. It has so many uses. It can be. Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, it can be dismissive, like whatever, I don't care, so whatever, I'm dismissing you. And in fact, it really came into light. Alicia Silverstone is the culprit who really made this happen. Remember in Clueless, she would do and she was sending out the message that, you're not worthy, and I'm dismissing you because of that. But it can also be passive aggressive. I mean, it can be, it can be whatever, I don't like you, and I'm just going to whatever, so in fact, in the book, as I talked to people, all these different definitions came out. There were over 20 definitions that I discovered. Everything from, since I discovered it, everybody uses it. I interviewed an entrepreneur who's all over Africa. He said, in Africa, it is just a sign of helplessness. Nothing I decide is going to change any situation. I'm helpless, so whatever. And that might be the worst definition of all. I'm helpless, so whatever.
That's sad, actually.
It is. It is the only good definition I've discovered. And this might be how you use it, Cynthia. It's, I love you, and I'll take I'll do whatever it takes to win your affections. That's a good definition. But other than that, all the others are in the category of, it's going to hurt you.
What's interesting is that using that example is it's so open to interpretation too, because I think my husband hears it as he's gonna have to decide, and then I'm gonna be upset about whatever he chooses.
Yeah.
But I'm meaning it as, I know you care more about this than I do, so just decide and I'll eat whatever you want.
Yeah. my favorite restaurant in San Francisco is the House of Prime Rib, because they've taken decision making out of your. I mean, you don't go there to get fish. Your only decision is, medium rare or rare, and retailers know this. Restaurants know it. I mean, taking decisions out of people's hands helps people buy, because it makes it easier.
Yeah, to your point, right? I mean, why did going back to Steve Jobs? Why did he have three colors? He didn't have 15 colors of the iPhone, right?
Yeah.
You have limited, choice, and sales skyrocket, right?
Yeah, and so in fact, when we limit choices, and lots of times there's, I hear people, they are burdened by, oh, I have so many choices. You don't. And if you really narrow down the options, you'll see that there's almost always just 2 or 3, and you get in trouble when all the options that you have to choose from are bad. But then you still have to make a choice. When our children were little, I used to give them the options of, okay, you can go to bed or you can take a bath and go to bed. That's it, and they would pick one, as opposed to just fighting them about going to bed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of like being drawn into someone else's process. You must feel like you're on a journey when your decisions are so clear, and then it highlights intent. It is like when you talk about Steve Jobs, for instance, or even going to bed. Like how to go to bed is up to you, but you're going to bed. You're going to go to bed.
Yeah.
How we get to this massive company is up to everyone around me. I'm this simple person, but we have to get there. Is that kind of the
little bit? But I think companies and their culture can set a whatever tone or a not whatever tone. My favorite interview, one of them anyway, was I interviewed Mike Huerta, who was the chief of the Federal Aviation Administration in Washington. He had 156,000 air traffic controllers reporting to him. So when I was talking to him about the word whatever, he said, it never even occurred to me, because can you imagine in the FAA, if you're talking to an air traffic controller and runway left or runway, whatever. No, that is not part of their world. He said, and then he said, they make it really simple. Clear choices are important. And he said they have one measure at the FAA, and that is that the same number of planes land that took off on any given day. I love that, because the choices are there's so much clarity. And in large organizations, lots of times the whatever seeps in when there's no clarity, and we get back to that in intentions and accountability, and that's where you get stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes sense why you're saying there was an increase after COVID. Clarity in general kind of went out the window.
Yeah. And people, there's sort of a sense of, well, it doesn't matter. Maybe this doesn't matter, whatever. It does matter. I tell a story about, remember the days, maybe you remember when you used to have to wear a tie to work. Well, I had a boss once that said, anytime you get a stain on your tie, just throw it away, because stains don't come out of ties. Ties are expensive. So he'd look at one day I wore a tie that had a stain on it, and he cut it off with a pair of scissors. I'm not going to wear that tie again, because when it was time to get dressed, I said, nobody will notice. Nobody will notice if there's a stain on the tie. He was telling me they notice. And I use that story just as a metaphor that people think, they won't notice. They do notice. And so that's a anti-whatever movement also. People notice.
Sorry, I don't mean to jump on here, but it's so also the tie thing is my first real employer. He said, don't wear ties. Ties are for accountants and lawyers. But the tie is a symbolism. The intent, to your point, was to not be seen as an accountant or a lawyer. And then in your situation was to not be seen as someone who didn't care. And
right.
Yeah.
But it didn't matter. These things don't matter. But, and I talk about, things like getting prepared for a performance review, whatever, I'll slack through it. No, it's not whatever, or showing up, or all those, developing relationships with your colleagues, even if it's on Zoom, it all matters. And those are all little decisions that can easily be addressed with a whatever. And who wants to be known as the whatever dude or the whatever woman?
You know what I'm taking from this, Rich, is that you can really say this. You can really say whatever without even really saying it. I mean, you don't even have to say it. It's an attitude. It's a way of thinking. And so this is a mental model that you really have to break.
Yeah, it will, and it can be a shrug of the shoulders. It can be a rolling of the eyes. It can be the middle finger. It can be demonstrated in lots of different ways. A lot of people that I talk to think, well, it's the purview of teenage girls. It's not. It's everyone. So don't put teenage women in that bucket. It's an attitude that everyone can have, and it's demonstrated in a lot of different ways. And it's not only at work; it's at home. It can be, throwing garbage out the window, whatever. Somebody will pick it up. I mean, it can be lots of different. It can be It's both behavior and an attitude that is really not helpful for anybody. It can be politics. When it comes to who to vote for, whatever. They're both bad. No, they might be bad, but you still have to make a choice.
You talk about accountability is the cure. What does that mean? And how does accountability fit in here?
Yeah, well, we're all accountable. I talk about being accountable to something because we're all in something. So it could be, we're at a big employer. It could be a small employer. It could be, you're the captain of a bowling team, or you're accountable to your family, or at the most basic level, you're accountable to yourself. You're responsible for your own success or happiness or lack thereof. So, when I talk about accountability, it means you're accountable for your own decisions and your own actions. And when you don't make a decision, you're just sloughing off that accountability, and it matters. It's the same thing. It's sort of the numerator. If the numerator is being intentional, the denominator is being accountable. And people, again, post-COVID, a lot of people think they're not accountable for their actions, but they are. They're accountable for showing up and accountable for doing a good job and being a good husband or wife or partner or whatever it might be.
I mean, and sorry to jump in on your question, Cynthia, but I think, this is where this is, you feel somewhat hopeless about this in a lot of ways, because if you think about where we are as a society, how we talk to each other, how we interact with one another, we're struggling as a society with that. And this notion that accountability, you have to be accountable, I think is missing. But I don't know how you get people to see and take responsibility, take accountability for what they did or didn't do. And it's such an issue. It's such a societal issue.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe this is the root of it. Maybe there are other things that the root causes, and I don't really have a question. That's more of a statement, more of a frustration really than anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're all feeling that frustration, and it's, people. The book is not about. I'm not trying to cure apathy. I mean, that's probably a byproduct. I just have just a small notion of, if you stop saying whatever, that things might get better. When you drive, how many of us, you drive by the no dumping sign on the side of the road, and in front of the no dumping sign, there's a couch and a refrigerator and tires. I mean, that's both accountability and not driving by and saying whatever. It could be calling the county or, fixing it yourself or something, but I just want people to get out of that notion that things matter, decisions matter, and whatever is just not helping.
I'm actually going through all the situations where I've seen the whatever make it down to, can you show me where the bathroom is? And then someone's like, no, like it doesn't matter if that person makes it there, And it really does feed into it's like you've given a name, you've given a target, you've given a way for us to see how to behave and show up better in the world.
Yeah.
Stop.
It's not, you know, I'm not trying to solve world hunger. I'm just trying to get people to stop saying whatever, and whether they utter it or think about it in small ways, that's my mission. It's a small one, and I've learned that there's all kinds of sophisticated modeling and artificial intelligence paths to make decisions. And I'm not trying to get people to do that. I'm just trying to get them to stop saying that word. And one way that I've learned is some of the leaders talk about this. When they hear that word, their response is, "Tell me what that means." You know, so when you're faced with a decision, and a leader will say, "Well," and somebody says, "Whatever," and they stop in their tracks, say, "Tell me what that means." And it really puts people on their heels, and said, "Oh, well, I guess it means I should have made a decision, or I should have done something." And it's a good technique to cure whatever. Tell me what that means.
It seems like a good way to moderate yourself as well, right?
Yeah.
If I just said that, if I just shrug my shoulders, time out, Rhett. Why did you do that?
Yeah.
You know?
Or as a woman told me, she was ready to kill her husband every night because he says, she'll say, "Well, honey, what do you want for dinner?" He'll say, "Whatever," and she wants to shoot him. So she started saying, "Tell me what that means. Does that mean you want leftovers? Does that mean you want to take me out for dinner? Does that mean whatever I choose you will like? Because I'm thinking about having Thai food, even though you hate Thai food." So, I mean, it's a really, it's a good technique. Just say, "Tell me what that means."
You may be solving all of the world's problems with this. Just thinking about it, because it also encourages conversation around frustration, which is the most toxic thing in any working or personal relationship in the world. I mean, like it is the small thing that could have a big difference. I'm curious, did you name the book and then write it, or did you write the book and then name it? How did you get to
The original title of the book was Never Whatever, because it was all about attitude and it was a little bit broader.
I like that.
But then I thought, well, if I just, that's maybe too philosophical. Let me just get it down to one word in the English language, and there it was. And it's actually been a fun book to write and a fun book to talk to people about, because it's not string theory or quantum logic. It's just this one simple word, and that's it. It's good. I like it.
Fantastic.
I like it. I'm excited about this. This is, and I'm thinking all these, I'm going through, I know Rhett's doing it too, like all the reasons why we think teenagers say it more. It's because they have less words to work with,
Yeah, I have a little, I have a little quiz here for people. Like, some questions are: do you eat second helpings even when you don't want them? Do you want second helping? Whatever, sure. And then you eat them and you gain 20 pounds and you wonder why. Or do you schedule or attend meetings just to kill time? Whatever. Yeah, people do that. Do you hang around with friends whom you don't really like? I mean, it's, come on, be intentional, make decisions. It's easy. It's not easy, but there's a little tools that can help.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
that's super. That's really great. I love this. I love this. Oh.
Well, I have to ask the last question. Unfortunately, we got a time here, but how can people buy the book when it comes out? Is there a website? All that kind of good information.
Yeah, it's out now. You can get it on Amazon or wherever you buy your books. And I have a website, richardmoran.com, that I look at. And I'm really available on LinkedIn. I mean, I looked at comments, I respond to people, and I'm an accessible kind of guy. I'm not hiding.
Okay.
I love that. Has anyone ever comment whatever to you? I just curious.
Everyone does now. It's like they're testing me. So, but it's, you know, a lot of people say that my publisher at McGraw-Hill said the word is like an earwig. She can't get rid of it now. Every time she hears it, in any context, she said it's like the Cars for Kids jingle. She just can't get rid of it. So it's, if I'm an earwig for people to stop saying the word, I'm happy.
Hey, we're all three McGraw-Hill authors, I think.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Cool.
All right.
Well, thanks.
Whatever.
Ah.
Well, thank you so much, Rich. It was a pleasure. And we'll be back next week with another episode.
Absolutely.
Thanks
so much.
Great. Thanks.